Hey there, it's Al from Altruistic Channel, and this particular little video snippet is a little bit more focused on the darker side of doing the work, which is part two of a video that I shot yesterday. And it kind of stuck with me all night, and so I kind of wanted to go a little bit more in depth into more of the darker side of seers, if you will. So essentially what we talked about in the previous little snippet was that when you do the work, you're actually looking at the negative aspects of self and looking to broaden your horizons and maybe tweak things or make things better than where they currently stand, essentially is what you're trying to do. So in that regard, there comes a point when you have done the initial first aspects to the work and you start to cross over into the more in-depth analysis of self, and you start to encounter darker topics that are reflective of society. And so it's what you're putting out into the world you're getting back. And so those darker sides you have to kind of come to terms with and build upon a new foundation. But that means you have to dismantle the original formatting or the original way of thinking. And so in the collective conscious, we refer to that as, or in the tarot too, we refer to it as a tower moment, where you have built such a structure that has stood up the test of time, but now in reality, now looking at it from a different perspective and one more with an alignment with God and whatever you believe God to be, or with your spiritual nature, you find that it's coming down and then it comes crashing down all around you. So what do you then do to build upon? So when you're dealing with societal things, the darker things like I hate to go into the darker side, but let's say a rape or molestation or things having to do with victimization that you had and overcoming that, and things that just reflect poorly on humanity, things that we do to each other that are not in the best light. We start to kind of come to terms with, why it had to happen that way. And when we say that, I always caution people, it's not like we ever justify that something needed to happen and that was God's grand design. We agree to whatever we're going to experience in this life. We don't always know at the time what's going to happen, but on a personal level, you will never hear any but one of us say that I wanted to be raped. That's not the point. The point is that it led you along your path to whoever you were supposed to become. So don't get stuck on the journey, because then you won't get to the end result. Just work your way through from a perspective of God would want you to empower yourself by coming to terms with your shortcomings or with things that make you feel less than. And so the process is to empower you to rise up and be able to represent yourself in a divine trilogy of self, spiritual self, and be able to walk the path in divine light going forward, which just means that you're able to stand for your truth, stand in your truth, and you have an ability to have dealt with the darkest parts of you so that nothing can shake your faith. And that faith is super instrumental for what's coming down the pike, because as the world changes and our perception changes, you're going to be called into action, if you will. If you're inclined to watch these videos and you're trying to find out more, or you read the book, the Moon King with No Kingdom from Amazon, which I wrote, or even A Dual Purpose, it's also another book I wrote, which, by the way, I should note there are more books coming. But if you were inclined to come and look at this and you're watching this now, the question is, are you willing to look at that negative, like the super dark parts of yourself? Because if you are, then you're ready to be challenged with the fact that you are going to be expanded upon. You're going to live a much fuller life, and you're going to see color and a lot more vibrancy. You're going to see the world with a lot more humility, and the ego kind of falls away, and you find yourself just centered. And when you center, you have power. And so that is what I'm trying to get across. So when you're going into this, just remember that you have the strength to do it, because it's just your shadow. It's just you looking at the darkest parts of you. Because the next step of evolution would then be, once you've come to terms with your aspects where you take responsibility for what you encounter, you can then focus on how you're going to help humanity deal with the same topic, because you're coming to the table owning your shit. Like for me, I hate to say it, but there was a time that I was a little bit racist towards Mexicans specifically, because of the way that I encountered them in California. They were really, really hard on me because I was white and all this stuff. And I just remember having a negative tone to how I thought about them. And it wasn't until I did the work that I realized that one of the problems that I had with racism as a whole is that when people would talk about racists, they would, or make racist statements. I could never actually stand against it for anybody, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, because of the fact that I found truth in what they were saying. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. And so that self-deprecating, detrimental aspect to who we are would not allow me to then be able to show up at the table because I was uncomfortable and I couldn't deal with the topic as an overall, like if I had to go into a community meeting, I would stutter and sound like a babbling idiot. Now that I've done the work and I've looked at what I was actually thinking and where it came from and why there's a little bit of truth and where the falsities are, I can show up at any political meeting and have a one-on-one that will not shake my foundation. So that's what we're talking about why you want to go through this stuff, is so that you have a core sense of self, your values are in check, your morals are in check, and you walk in definition of God's light, and then you become the light bearer. So that's what you're after, because that's the next step. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know on this channel. Please like, subscribe, or share if you do enjoy it. And also remember, guys, the Moon King and With No Kingdom is available on Amazon. There's a special coming out in the next couple days, and don't forget to check me out also on the Facebook, which also has its own page, and just keep abreast of what's going on. I wish you guys light and love, and remember that everybody has strength within them. Just find your voice and stick with it.